Hello, I'm Mike Weatherford. Welcome to the Mike Weatherford Show. My buddy Billy.
Yeah, how you doing?
I'm doing wonderful, man. How you been?
I'm just hanging on like a hubcap.
Oh, you're a hubcap today?
Yeah.
Usually you're in a hair and a biscuit.
That's it. Changing up a little bit like Norm.
Man, it's been hot, ain't it?
Oh.
Are you tired of the heat?
Yes, sort of.
Is that
I'm kind of looking forward to fall. That way I can dress up and look a little bit nicer.
Yeah. Is that jacked up four-wheel drive you got air conditioning?
It does.
I meet you
You're the one fixed it.
I know I meet you sometimes. You got your windows rolled up. I didn't know if it was you just locked it hard or that air was working.
Oh, the air's working.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. Hey, you ain't got no baby mamas looking for you, do you?
I don't think so.
Ooh, guess who we got going to talk with tonight?
I don't know.
We got General Sessions Juvenile Judge and Miss Vicki Snyder in the house.
Yes. She knows me well.
Ooh. She knows me.
Even before she was a judge.
There you go. We're going to talk with her. We're going to find out what the Juvenile and General Sessions Judge does, what their jobs are, and just get some info. Just try to get some.
Looking for answers.
We're just looking for answers. Let's don't keep her waiting.
Yeah.
Miss Vicki, would you come on in and join us, hon? How are you doing?
I'm doing fine, thank you.
Welcome to the show. Get your ears on and you can hear Billy. You can see him,
right.
then you'll hear him.
I don't know, she won't be looking at me.
She might want to put her sunglasses
I guess
on.
it ain't near as bad as it used to be.
You're fine. How are you doing?
I'm doing well, thank you.
I want to welcome you to the show. I
Thank
appreciate
you.
Glad to be here, thank you.
I appreciate you taking your time and your busy woman and busy schedule and coming down here and just having a chat with us.
I'm always glad to inform the public of what the judiciary does.
That's wonderful. Tell me about yourself. We all know that you're the General Sessions Juvenile Judge, but can I call you Vicki Snyder for a second?
You can just call me Vicki, how about that?
Okay. Miss Vicki, tell me a little bit about you, your family, and just tell me who you are. The people might not even know.
All right, well, I'm married to Mark Snyder, who's in the house tonight.
Mark.
Yes. My parents are Reed and Peggy Shepard. They are still alive and kicking and doing very well. They are 82 and 83. And my brother is Mike, and he's a tool and die maker at Dana. Been there a long time. I have 3 kids, 5 grandkids, who are all just marvelous. You ask any parent, they think their kids and grandkids are the best. I graduated from Henry County High School in 1976, went to UT Martin. Then I went on to the Cecil C. Humphrey School of Law in Memphis. Graduated from there, and I have worked in various roles. I was a social worker for the Department of Human Services, which then branched out into 2 agencies, Department of Human Services and the Department of Children's Services. I worked in the private practice of law after I graduated from law school. I worked as an assistant DA, assistant district attorney general for 6 years, assistant public defender for 10, and I've been a judge for 15 years.
15 years.
Mm-hmm.
That don't seem that long ago.
Yeah, I know. 2006.
Lord Almighty.
Yes.
You got 5 grandkids.
I do, yes.
Well, I've got 10. I've got one. I got something over you. I got 10 of them.
I knew you had a lot.
What's some of your hobbies you do when you're not sitting on the bench?
Well, I like to exercise, and I like to read. I like to spend time with my family. There are just a lot of different things that I enjoy doing. I like to spend time with friends. As I get older, my activities have changed somewhat. We used to do a lot of lake activities, but we don't do many of those anymore. I like to try different things. As you get older, sometimes you like to try things you've never done before, kind of bucket list things.
They say your taste changes, and so I think that your lifestyle changes as you get older.
True. You know,
I'm getting older too.
I want to try skydiving and
First time I did it, I had to jump 3 times the first time.
Well, Mark thinks I'm crazy for wanting to do that, but there are some things on my bucket list I want to try.
Do it.
Oh, I'm going to. Life is short.
Get up there and do that.
Eat dessert first,
But I can't see no reason to jump out of a perfectly good plane.
Oh, I can.
I don't see no reason for that.
You talking about being an adrenaline junkie. You don't know anything till you jumped out of an airplane.
I've jumped out of helicopters.
Have you?
That's a little different. We'll talk about that later.
Well, I'm
Dope
gonna.
on the
I
road?
want to do it tandem with
tandem?
some. Yeah,
Right.
I'm not doing it by
I did
myself.
it by myself.
No,
And
not
I
me.
was going to have to put rocks in my pocket because it took me so long to get down out of there.
Because you're so light.
You floated.
I floated.
I'd like to sing that. And I'm sorry, Vicki, the sight of him coming out of an
That's
airplane has got me. You done told me you've been a judge for 15 years.
yes.
Man, I can remember that well. That's pretty good. What is a typical day for a general sessions juvenile judge? What? Just tell me. I know you get up, and because Billy's gonna say she gets up first. After you get up
Coffee.
and drink your coffee and you make your way to work. Billy, help me here. When you get to work at the courthouse, what's the typical day for a judge?
Well, every day varies. On Monday, we have civil court. Civil court for general sessions is any lawsuit that is involves a monetary issue of less than $25,000. So $24,999.99, which could be
That's a lot of money to me.
Yes, yeah. It could be a debt, a medical debt, a landlord-tenant action. Have a lot of those evictions.
Right now, they're opening that back up.
Well, we've been open since January under a federal court decision out of Memphis. West Tennessee has been open
for how long?
since January.
Really?
I believe it was January. I
I
believe
bet
when
that
order.
clogged, as they say, clogged the courts.
Yeah, we've been pretty busy with those. Those are difficult, when you have someone who's going to be displaced, and we don't have a lot of housing for people. We were short on housing for people, and that's very difficult for people, especially when they have children. So that's a struggle for me. And then the landlord has rights, of course. It's their home, and if the lease is breached because someone hasn't paid rent or they violated the lease in a certain way, General Sessions is a court of law. It's not a court of equity. Courts of equity are like Chancery Court. That means that, you can do the fair thing.
Right.
A court of law is you have to follow the law. So if there's a lease, which is, you look at the four corners of the contract, and if there's a breach of that lease, I can't do what I think is fair or what my heart says to do. I have to follow the law. And that means when there's a breach of lease, then I am mandated to follow the law.
That's very hard. Because I happen to know you. We're friends, and you have a big heart.
I do, yeah.
You do, and that's got to be hard for you to
yes.
to get in the four corners of that lease and
Yes.
do what the law says when
Right.
you know that. That's hard. I know it's got to be.
I often call Lori Roberts and Melanie Denton with Set Free Ministries because they have programs for women who are homeless with their children, and Randy Roberts, who has a program for men who are homeless. And they come up there quickly. And Wilbur Farmer, thank goodness Wilbur, he comes and he helps me with men who are homeless. They're on speed dial and come immediately to assist. Now, there are no programs for families who are homeless. So that's difficult. So we have people living in their cars.
As they say, I want to circle back to the
Okay.
to the homeless.
Okay.
But I
So,
want you to tell me what you do on Tuesdays.
okay, on Tuesday, that's criminal court. Criminal court's on Tuesday and Thursday.
Yeah, I knew that.
It's a joke. It's a joke.
Criminal
really.
court, I have jurisdiction to resolve any matter that is a misdemeanor. So a misdemeanor is any crime that carries a penalty of 11 months and 29 days or less. That's a Class A misdemeanor.
So 1 day from being a year.
Correct.
Might as well call it a year.
True. So but almost every criminal case begins with me. So if it's a murder one, it begins with me.
Really? I wasn't aware of that.
Yes. Oh, every case. Now, there are a few cases that the DA will walk into the grand jury. That's called a secret indictment. But even those cases can come back to me for a preliminary hearing if it's ordered by the circuit court. Those are rare. So let's just talk about those, the norm, which
Right.
is, so every case begins with me. If it's a felony, the person is entitled to a preliminary hearing. At a preliminary hearing, the state has to show two things. Probably a crime was committed, number one, and two, probably the accused person committed that crime. So the threshold, the burden of proof by the state is very low. If the state proves that, then I bind it over to the action of the grand jury. The grand jury in Henry County meets in the first Monday in March, the first Monday in July, the first Monday in November, barring a holiday. Judge Parrish or the circuit judge sets those.
Right.
If they don't prove that, I dismiss it. And then the state still can walk that in.
It's kind of up to you to say they proved it.
Correct.
Or if they didn't prove it.
Right. Now, that's a preliminary hearing.
Right.
If there's a hearing on the merits, and that's if a misdemeanor, if the person wants a hearing on the merits, that means they want me to decide if they're guilty or not, and then I decide punishment. The state then has to prove beyond a reasonable doubt. That's a much higher burden. That's like, if it's a jury trial, I always used to tell jurors when I was a prosecutor, that means when you lay your head on the pillow tonight, you rest comfortably that this person committed that crime. Not maybe they committed it, probably they committed it,
right.
They might have committed it, I think they committed it, but beyond a reasonable doubt. And that's a high burden for the state.
Reasonable doubt means if there is a doubt in your mind, you got to say no. Reasonable. What?
Well,
I don't want to nail you down on that, but
know.
what would reasonable be?
That's subjective.
Thank you.
To the
That's what I
person
was-
trying.
that's right,
It's the
that's what-
trier of fact. For me, for a bench trial, it's the judge. For a jury trial, it's each juror.
Sure.
So that's
complicated.
It is very complicated.
You've already given me a headache. How do you do all that?
Well, I've been
How
doing,
do you turn off?
You know.
I hate to butt in. How do you turn off from Monday when you got children and families that's not paying their rent, or it could be a lot of things. I just said that because that's probably a lot of them. Till the next day, you got somebody that's may have committed a murder. I mean, it's
well,
just.
I've been doing this a long time, so I mean, I can do that because I've done this for a very long time.
You have. You've got the experience. I mean, yes.
And so I hear orders of protection also. When someone's seeking a petition for an order of protection, that's civil in nature, but we handle those on our criminal days because sometimes there are criminal matters that go hand in hand.
What is Billy doing back here? You're in my ear.
People are pointing and doing this and that, and I'm having to do things. You just keep talking. Ignore me like you usually do.
Okay.
And so that's our really heavy docket. And some weeks we'll have 400 criminal cases on a Tuesday and Thursday combined. We have speeding, 400 criminal cases, and that includes traffic. That's speeding and
tickets,
driving on revoked, DUIs. We have a lot of DUIs, and a lot of drug cases.
Billy, did I hear correctly? Y'all said 400 goes through your court in one day?
No. In a Tuesday and Thursday combined.
That's 200 a day.
Correct.
Yeah.
Jesus.
But that's including speeding tickets.
I can add, Billy. Did you hear that? I divided 400 by 2. Are you proud of me?
Yeah.
Okay. But that's a lot.
Yes.
Jesus.
Well, methamphetamine is very prevalent.
Oh, yeah, I want to get into that. I want to talk about that.
Okay.
But that's just, that amazes me, too. Something else I know about you that you didn't know I knew. You're one of the few, if not the only, full-time general sessions and is a juvenile judge in our area.
Yes, in our judicial district, which is the 24th Judicial District, which is Benton, Carroll, Decatur, Hardin, and Henry counties, I am the only full-time general sessions judge.
Does that mean we have more crime, or does that mean that we have...
I don't know that that's the reason I am, but I will tell you I am on the bench almost every day, and those other judges in those other 4 counties are not on the bench every day. So I'm not going to delve into the reason. We have a much heavier docket.
200 a day?
Than they do.
Yeah.
200 a day.
That's it.
Jesus Christ.
I never really
that's
quite
not every
realized.
Week. Some weeks they're lighter and some weeks they're heavier. But the heavy weeks could be.
That's blown me away. It's my hometown, and I know there's problems, but I would have never dreamed 200 cases.
Sometimes it can be 200, yes.
You don't have to go up there anymore, do you? You grew up?
Yes. She made her believer of me?
Yeah.
No, I'm kidding.
Well,
but 200, Billy.
Yeah, I know.
I mean, that's just a shocking. I'm staying on that because I figured you might see 30, 40 a day.
Oh, my gosh, no. I mean,
wished.
And considering that the genesis of most criminal activity, other than driving on revoked or speeding, are drugs. Person use, they steal, they rob, they commit crime to get money to buy drugs, or they're selling drugs, or they're using drugs, or they're under the influence of drugs when they commit a crime. Drugs are the reason for most all crime.
I believe it is.
Mm-hmm.
I believe it is. It's the root cause of it. Do you have many methamphetamine making it much anymore? I don't hear a lot of that.
Well, when the Tennessee legislature passed the law that affected the sale of or the prescriptions by doctors on the amount of
ingredients, I guess you'd say.
Yes, that doctors could prescribe as well. So that affected the manufacture or the making of methamphetamine. Right. See, I was the first DA in our district to try a manufacturing methamphetamine case. I think it was back in '93. It was with Scott Wyrick from the sheriff's office.
Right.
We had to bring
He's our chief now.
Yes, we had to bring a chemist in from Miami, an FBI chemist, and somebody else, because we didn't know anything about methamphetamine. Some people at the lake had made it, and they made it by the not the anhydrous method, but the red phosphorus method. So they took all these matches and they scratched the little red part off the matches. That's the red phosphorus method back then of making it. And then there was the anhydrous ammonia method. You use the nitrous, the fertilizer for crop.
Yeah, I understand.
And they dried it in an old TV screen. It's concave, so they dried it there and scratched it up with razor blades. So that was.
Y'all didn't know what you was dealing with.
We didn't have a clue, so we had to be educated. So we had this person flown in, and he educated us, and then he testified. And we got a conviction. That was our first glimpse at manufacture of methamphetamine.
Jesus.
So the reason at that time the red phosphorus method of making methamphetamine was popular in East Tennessee because they didn't grow corn in East Tennessee, Rocky Top.
That's right.
And so they didn't. Yes. And so they didn't use the nitrous. They didn't use the anhydrous ammonia. They used it here.
Yeah, it was available here. Yeah,
right.
We had the crop, so we had the product.
Right. So then people began to figure out ways to make it from chemicals that they kept in their, cleaning cabinet, and then you could make it using the, quercetin, the little tablets that you buy at the pharmacy, the cold medicine, and I guess you learned that on the internet. I don't know. Yeah. And then they made it in shake and bake. You use a plastic bottle and you just shake it and make it in your car. There's your,
Jesus.
lab. And so then when they couldn't get the quercetin or the cold tablets, when ice, methamphetamine in ice form, crystal meth, when they realized they could use that and it was so much better. And then clandestine laboratories in Mexico were making it, and it was being transported to the U.S., and they got that. It was like, well, I'm not using that stuff. I'm going to use this. And back, in the 60s, drugs have migrated across the country from the West Coast to the East historically. Mm-hmm. And crank cases,
come from, yeah.
Crank cases of motorcycles.
That's right.
That's what that is.
They claimed that the bikers brought it in.
Right. It was the poor man's cocaine.
That's right.
So they would put it in their crank cases, and then it moved across the country. And so, Hollywood wives would use a little bit of meth to stay thin, stay skinny. And students will use a little meth to stay awake. But what happens is that it gets out of control, and then they use more and more and more, and they can't quit.
Vicki, I have a problem. I'm going to let Billy ask you, but I'm going to ask, there's nobody out there in the world that I believe that doesn't know what meth will do to you. I think that everybody's done a good job at educating the public how bad that drug is. It's awful. It's a bad drug. But somewhere, there's somebody trying it for the first time now.
Well, yeah,
and that's what's scary.
It's not a physical addiction. It's a psychological addiction. So when they use it the first time, imagine the best you've
chasing that rabbit.
Or chasing the dragon.
Yeah.
Imagine the best you've ever felt. Your first child, and magnify that by 1,000. That's how they feel the first time they use it. This is how they've described it when I've talked to them before.
Really?
that's how they feel the first time they use it, and they're always chasing that. They
Kind of
never.
like meat and biscuits and gravy.
Sound like crack to me. I don't know.
Biscuits
They're
and
always
gravy.
chasing that high to
This is
get
similar,
that back.
yeah. But it's a psychological addiction. It's that, and it's when you have a psychological addiction, you don't have the.
Yeah, it's more in your head. It
Yes.
ain't like physical.
And
It
so
ain't
they
like-
don't, when they're using ice, they don't have the sores and they don't have all the outward
Because
manifestations.
it's not, what they say, clean.
And the green
It's
and
not near as dirty.
The green mouth. They don't have all those manifestations you used to see from the shake and bake method.
Right, because since they've got it out there in the desert in Mexico and stuff like that, they're able to get out there and cook it up and make it cleaner. So it's not near as much stuff coming out through their skin and stuff like that.
I'm out of touch. When I was a kid growing up, and Vicki and I are close to the same age, it was marijuana that somebody growed in their backyard. Then you had a little black tar heroin, which I never tried that. That come in. Then later on, right as we got to being young adults and trying to raise a family, then cocaine come out. And basically by then, I couldn't afford cocaine. I mean, it was high, I thought. But time I got into then here come meth. That's just...
Well, the thing now, though, is methamphetamine, heroin,
Yeah.
they're laced with fentanyl. And so, fentanyl, you'd open a package of Sweet and Low, and 3 grams of 3 little pieces of Sweet and Low, that amount of fentanyl will kill you. And so carfentanil, which is elephant tranquilizer, if you open a package of Splenda, 1 little piece of that much carfentanil will kill someone.
Why do they make that? Has it got a medical reason, or is it just something to make you high?
Yes, a fentanyl patch
Yeah.
is what end-stage cancer patients
Gotcha,
get from
okay.
the physician. I mean, it's strong and it helps with the pain.
It's opium, or is it opium?
It's a heroin. It's a synthetic heroin.
Mm-hmm.
That's where I have a little bit of issue with the medical people, because they came up with synthetic, and it's actually, I've been told, worse than just regular old heroin. You got a better chance of rolling the dice with regular old heroin than you do with fentanyl. Is that correct?
I couldn't speak to that because I haven't.
You ain't heard
it.
anything like that?
No, I haven't. But in the pill mills where people make pills that look like something that you get at the pharmacy that might be prescribed from you, there are lots and lots of people that have pill mills. That's what it's called, and they make a pill that looks like it. And so they're buying those off the street. Sometimes they'll put fentanyl in the batch so that it will be stronger, and then they have a little marker on that, and they know that. So if you're on the street and you're buying pills, they'll know that that's your marker and that's your pill. So then if it's strong, they'll say, "Man, go buy his dope. It's good." Yeah. So that's how we've been trained at conferences about how to deal with people and what's happening with the fentanyl. But we were having a lot of overdoses from people who think they're buying from someone they trust, but these are on the street
We've got
issues.
serious issues with that,
Yeah.
with fentanyl. And see, here's one of the problems that we've got is China understands that Mexico is the middleman between the United States. So because of the way the border is, it's coming through there, and it's more or less opened up, and it's really, really dangerous. I mean,
Jesus, so
dangerous.
That you could just be an innocent bystander if it's that bad, and happen to touch it could kill you.
Well, and actually
If you go into houses, with a drug bust, you're liable to get killed right there.
Officers are very cautious by gloving, and they're very, very careful when they, execute a search warrant, and they know what they're getting. They hope they know what they're getting into.
When you have someone come into your courtroom with a drug charge, and they're, you can tell, I'm sure it may not be their first time they've been charged, just not, or it could be their 100th time. What do you try to do? How do I put this in words? What is your goal? To get them off of drugs, or punish them, or what do we do?
Well, if they're not selling,
Yeah, I'm talking about, yeah,
they're just a user,
right.
an addict.
Sure.
We don't have an official drug court, but we all as a team, because it's a team of people, it's not just me, it's a team of people, are, if everyone agrees, if the DA and the attorney and everyone, the attorney for the accused person, if they wish to go to treatment, that is always an option for them, long term. Not this 30-day stuff.
Okay.
I'm talking a year.
Gotcha.
And
if they're serious, they want to get off. But how many people would you say, I know you can't read minds, but is a lot of them seriously wanting off? Or a lot of them just telling that to keep out of jail?
No. They're going and they're completing.
And they're staying clean.
Yeah, the Hope Center, well, we have a lot of great programs around here. Aspel out of Jackson is a good program. I mean, there's so many. I don't want to mention any
Sure, I understand.
that to the exclusion of another.
Well, we're getting to a good point here. I mean, we're glad we've got them, whoever they are. I mean,
yes. Now, we have one in Henry County, and that's the Hope Center for Women.
Right.
And it's out on Lazy Day Lane off of Old Union Road. And they house like maybe 30 to 35 women, and it's a long-term program. And the women that are finishing that year program, and sometimes they stay longer, are just doing remarkably well.
That's good news.
Yes.
So you really ain't looking at them and say, I'm going to put you in jail, because I've always been told that bad things happen to good people. Bad things can happen to good people.
When you begin to look at each person, because every person's different.
That's right.
At their background, very often you find that they grew up in a home where there was nothing but drugs, alcohol, domestic violence, and dysfunction. And that's all their parents ever knew too. So if you can break that cycle, then they can be better parents to their children, and their children can be better parents. And you break that cycle. And we're doing that. We're having luck with that. And that is joyful.
Yeah, I mean, why wouldn't it be? I mean,
I want to tell you a short little story.
Sure.
A couple of years ago, I had a young man in court, and he was charged, and I'd had him in court many times, and he was a respectful young man. And he was the last person on the docket. His wife was a state inmate, so they brought her up because she was his victim of a domestic assault. And so he was pleading guilty, and I spoke to him and I said, now, you're going to complete the batterer's intervention prevention class, because you have to do that when you're found guilty of domestic assault. And he pled guilty. And I said, we're going to find out, it's not a Band-Aid on a bullet wound. We're going to dig that bullet out and find out why you do the things you do. And he began to cry.
In the courtroom? In
the courtroom. There wasn't anybody there but the bailiffs and her.
He sincerely.
Yes, and so he sat down, the probation officer talked to him, and they took him out because he couldn't be transported with a female. The different officer had to transport her. And she looked at me and she said, you don't know what you just did. And I thought, and I said, what? She said, when he was a kid, his mother used to lock him and his little brother in a closet for days, a dark closet. And I had a lump in my throat, and I said, oh my. She said one time his mother overdosed his little brother on cold medicine. And he lived, but he had to take care of his brother. I mean, he was 4, his little brother was 2. He raised his little brother. So imagine yourself being locked in a closet. Imagine your grandchildren being locked in a closet at 4 for days at a time. I understood his dysfunction better then. I haven't seen him back in court since.
Really?
And so I asked her, I said, why are you in jail? And she said, well, when he took off after we got into it, he took the car. It was the only car we had. And she said, I needed to report to my state probation officer. We had a 1 and a 2-year-old children, 1 and 2. I didn't have any way to get to my probation officers. I didn't have minutes on my phone. Poverty, no car, no minutes on their phone. She said, so I got arrested. And I looked at my bailiff and I said, will you get in touch with Judge Parrish, circuit judge, and tell him what happened here? And see if she can at least get out on something? I mean, there's a story there.
Who had the children? The state?
I think her family. Yeah, the state didn't take them. She was able to call her some family. But I mean, there's always a story. There's always a backstory. If somebody will take time to listen.
You even like me a lot.
And there's accountability. And I always tell people there's accountability for what you did. But you need to get some treatment.
You're right.
You know, and if they are serious, we're serious in helping
That's
them.
neat, what you just told me. You and I and everybody in here, there's a lot of people in here they can't see, but we all are blessed the way we was raised. I know you had good parents.
yeah,
I had good parents.
absolutely.
Billy, and everybody had good parents. We're blessed and don't even know it. When you see more of that, I see things myself. I help people and do what I can, help our community, but I don't see what you see. I wanted to bring you in and say, why ain't you hard on these people? But when you're telling me that, how can you be?
Well, sometimes you have to be.
Not on stuff like that. That's that right there. You're making it understandable to an old street guy like myself, old grouchy guy. I'd be the same way, Vicki.
And I want people to understand that it's state of Tennessee versus John Doe. Mm-hmm. So the state of Tennessee, the DA's office, they have the authority to do what they wish with a case, not the judge.
Right.
If they wish to dismiss a case, as much as I might not like it, I have no authority in that. That's up to the state of Tennessee.
Tell us how that all works.
Okay.
Give me an example of, if you can, of how a case, no names involved, just somebody. I'm going to give you I'm going to be the sheriff. Vicki, I've got this guy arrested. It's not going to be you this time, Billy. I've got somebody arrested, and they broke into houses, and I've arrested them. That's just, it's not how it works, but you get my scenario. They're in jail.
Okay.
They bring them in front of your courtroom. You take them from there. What happens?
Well, first of all, the state has the right. State has they have the obligation, and that is their responsibility to prosecute the case. Mm-hmm. That's the DA's office.
The first hearing, when the first time
They're burdened.
Well, they come to court, and if they can't make their bond, if they qualify for a court-appointed attorney, I appoint an attorney.
How's their bond set? I had the sheriff. The sheriff was in here, and he explained to me the bonds, and I didn't know all that. I thought there was at one time there was a menu.
No.
But he told me there's.
Oh, no, you can't do that. That's
right.
unconstitutional.
That's what he said.
Yes.
He agreed. That's what he told me. He said no. But he said there's you that sets bond. There's
some, not many.
That's right. And there's
judicial commissioners.
Right.
And Mike Wilson, the clerk. Yes.
Right. So what makes one guy have a big bond and maybe the same case? I see on which I'm sure you hear about. Oh, this guy got charged with marijuana. He had $50,000 bond. This guy beat somebody up. He only had a $5,000 bond. And can you explain to me how that all happens, or?
Well, I can speak to what I do.
That's
I can't
right.
speak to the judicial commissioners or the clerk.
Right.
What I do in setting a bond is I will ask the officer, is this person on probation or parole? That's the number one question. Right. Second, do they have any prior felony convictions? Mm-hmm. And if it's a personal injury crime, if they have hurt someone, I want to know the status of that person. Like if they've shot someone, what's the status of that injury? If that person's life flighted to the med in Memphis, we know that's critical. That's where people go who are critical. So I want to know those. I want to know those questions. I want to know the answers to those questions. If they're not on probation or parole and they don't have any prior felony convictions, then the bond's going to be lower. If it's a property crime, that's going to be lower than a personal injury crime.
Well, our Constitution, our Bill of Rights, gives us a chance to be bonded on both. So that's what you're up against too.
Right.
Vicki, we got to take a break.
Okay.
We got to pay the bills, but I want to continue this. You're not going nowhere, are you?
No.
All right. Billy?
Yes, sir.
Lead us to break.
Hey, we got to get out of here and go take care of some business. So we'll see you here in a little bit. Miss Vicki.
Right back.
This presentation of the Mike Weatherford Show is being brought to you by
Paris Power Sports, a bad boy and skag mower dealer and service center that is the area's leading power sports company since 2016. Mow with an attitude and power on.
Napa Auto and Truck Parts. With over 95 years of experience, you can trust the Napa know-how.
Take Me Back Cafe. Delicious home-cooked family-style meals in a nostalgic, warm, and inviting atmosphere. Take Me Back Cafe. Great for the entire family.
And the attorneys at Hawley & McAdams, who with over 90 years of combined experience pride themselves in competent, thorough representation, utilizing their vast experience in a broad array of practice areas. Voted favorite law firm in the 14th Annual Reader's Choice Award, Hawley & McAdams are proud and honored to serve you.
Welcome back to the Mike Weatherford Show. We've got General Sessions Juvenile Judge Vicki Snyder. We've been talking some heart-jerking things. I mean, I knew Vicki had a hard job, but I didn't know how hard it could be on your heart from what I've been hearing. I mean, it's pretty hardening there, Billy. I mean, it is. She's got a hard job. If you think you want to be the judge, you might want to listen real closely to what she's saying, because she's a mother, she's a judge, and she's got a heart, and that's got to be a hard thing to do.
Anybody that has to do that, especially when it has to do with children, and
man. And she's talking about the 4 sides of a letter. She's got the law, and she's got her heart. I mean, Vicki, you've got a hard job. I respect you even more after what you told us. But
thanks, but I want you to understand that it's a team of people that do this. So, I know I have to make the ultimate decision.
That's right.
But
it's you. You could say no, we're not going to do it that way. But it's good to know, Henry County. We need to know this. We've got a judge up here that's really got a heart, and decisions that she makes that maybe I don't agree with. After this little conversation, we got to realize that there's more to it. She's really considering every option. I really believe that, and she's doing what's best for everybody involved.
Well, one of the reasons I think that she's got one of the hardest jobs, not only she's General Sessions, but she's also juvenile, and I never realized the caseload that she has to carry, and I knew that before your friend, Hansel. I learned from him exactly what he had to do, and I was just blown away. And you found out that there's not that many that are full-time, like Miss Vicki, and then you got several that are part-time, that are General Sessions judges, right?
correct.
Let's lighten things up a little bit. Do you know, Mike, why they wear a black robe?
Is this a trick question?
No, it's not. I'm just kind of wondering that. I heard that the other day, and it kind of...
A black robe?
Yes,
No.
where they started that. It was actually a habit, or not really a habit, I guess, but do you know?
No. I thought it came maybe from England. And
I didn't Roman law or English law.
Yeah.
I'm trying to, I can't.
Do you know or not?
Recall the judge's name that started that tradition, and it's carried down through
Really?
that, and that's why they wear the black robe. I'm going to have to go back.
Robe?
I do. Now, Chuck Elizondo, when he was the police chief, and we've been friends since high school, we were in band together.
He's been on the show.
Yeah, he called it my gown.
Do you ever hit that gavel?
No.
Why?
I just don't have the need to.
Really?
I mean, when you're patient with people,
You are.
patience brings peace.
If I ever come in there for a traffic violation, would you do it for me? Just slap that gavel and look at me?
If you want me to, I will.
I want you to.
The one in juvenile court has only ever been slapped and used by a bunch of second graders that came to observe. Well, they didn't observe court. They came for a court visit. Mm-hmm. And I talked with them. I think it was Chief Elizondo, Lieutenant Ramos. He brought his dog in, and then they wanted to do the gavel. So I let them all come up. Well, in a few minutes, I realized that was a mistake, because, they were banging it, and I said, okay, folks, we're not going to destroy the gavel. But that's the only time that gavel's ever been banged.
Do you know what the gavel's about, Billy?
No, just,
Yeah, Mark reminded me. So I have to wear readers sometimes, and so sometimes when I get them down on the end of my nose and look over my readers, that's the message that's enough.
Really?
And everybody knows it. After 15 years, the looking over my glasses,
The attorneys, they understand.
the general population, Chip McLean says the hand goes up. So when I do this, with the attorneys, they know to just be quiet. The hand.
That's right.
So, and I don't have to do that very often.
Well,
but
no,
it's the hand or the nose. Or the
Julian
glasses.
Gwynn's the one that used to scare me to death.
Who?
Julian Gwynn, old circuit court judge.
Well, he made me a better lawyer, and I'm a better judge because of Judge Gwynn. He was my mentor.
Well, he broke me.
Did he break you?
Yeah, he did.
I bet he broke a lot of people.
You know, you better be on time and you better be prepared as a lawyer.
Did you
And
have?
so,
I've noticed in your courtroom, which I've never been up there for very
it's
little.
not my courtroom, it's the people's courtroom.
Okay,
I always
well,
clarify that.
okay,
People say that and I'm like, oh, it is not my
Okay.
courtroom. It is
Vicki,
the people's
courtroom that you preside over.
There you go.
All right. I've noticed you let him be a little bit more. He's on to me for moving in my chair. I got to be more still. I'm sorry, producer, but you let them be more free on how they dress.
No, when I first started, people were coming in shorts and bellies were showing and
Yes.
tank tops and I started a dress code immediately. That's the only
you.
change I made at first.
I knew you had.
Yes,
that
and
when I
so
said
we
that.
have worn we have jail uniforms, the pants and the tops that are clean. We keep a box of them outside the courtroom, and when someone comes dressed inappropriately, a man or a woman, the bailiffs make them put those on over their clothing.
You know, people, if all places, if you're going to dress a little bit nicer, wouldn't you think a courtroom would be the place to practice it? I mean,
Well, I just got back from Clarksville
you're in
Monday.
traffic court.
Well, it's
got a ticket.
No, it was everything. It was general sessions. So when I was up there, I was like,
What was you in it for? A ticket? Speeding?
well, the truck with them big tires does 4 miles faster than what it's supposed to.
Go ahead.
So, but when I was up there in the courtroom, I was absolutely amazed by the outfits that I saw up there.
Well, my dad taught
I mean,
me.
holes. I'm not talking about just work holes. I mean, holes that was in their jeans. It was just like, I was like,
My dad taught me when you go to the funeral home or church, you dress up. And if you have to go to court, you dress up. You're respecting a whole lot in that courtroom in the church. That's how I was taught. But, Billy,
Yes,
what
sir.
was you wanting to talk about?
well, I got a few questions that, I was kind of wondering about.
Okay.
And there was also, I had some questions that people was messaging me about.
All right.
I guess anybody that's wanting to know your pay, they can actually, that's public record.
It is.
How often can you take vacations?
I can take a vacation anytime I want to, but I take one a year and it's a week. And we're going in a few weeks, actually.
Well, that's nice.
One a year for a
Yeah,
week.
I kind of knew that too, but
Yeah.
somebody asked me that.
Yeah.
Say, for example, if you had to do a restraining order or...
I don't do restraining orders. They're out of Chancery Court.
That's
I do,
Chancery Court?
But I do handle orders of protection, and those are...
That falls under you.
Yes.
So how's that work?
Well, someone would come into a General Sessions Court and see one of the clerks or Mr. Wilson and fill out a petition for an order of protection. And if they want to seek a temporary order of protection, then I'm called by one of the clerks. And if I'm on the bench and I can't get away, Mr. Wilson considers it. The temporary order would have to allege some imminent danger to the person. It can't
Right.
be because they're trying to take my child from me.
Right.
You
see so much.
Yes, that's a mini
BS.
divorce. That's a mini divorce, It has to be that the person is really fearful because the person has stalked them. There's a sexual assault. They have hurt them. They have assaulted them. There are allegations of physical harm, threat of really imminent physical harm, stalking, sexual assault, and after reading it, and it's sworn to by them before one of the clerks, then I look at it and
It's a sworn affidavit.
Yes, it's a sworn affidavit. I consider it if I'm handling it, and then I consider whether it's appropriate to go ahead and issue a temporary order. Then the other person, the respondent, would be the other party. It's not always a man. Sometimes the man's seeking against the woman. And then they're served and we come to court. Now, the parties have to have a certain relationship. They're either in a relationship, they've been married, are married, live together, are related by blood. There are categories of relationships, and there's a list of them. It can't be your neighbor. That's not going to fall under a petition for an order of protection.
Oh, I see.
So, and it's very particular. So
So the law sets that.
Yes.
That's not by Vicki, that's
No,
by...
no, that's statutory.
Criteria they have to meet.
Correct, yes. And then they come to court and we address them with it very specifically and ask the person, do you wish to have a hearing? And I go through everything about it, because during a period of an order of protection, when it's in place, that person, the respondent, the person that is ordered not to have contact, can't possess or purchase a firearm. And they have to dispossess themselves of any firearm they have by giving it temporarily to another person. And so that's a deprivation of a right they have. And
That's serious.
yes.
It is serious.
And so it's not forever. It's not like if you're
Right.
convicted of domestic assault, you are forever prohibited from possessing or purchasing a
Or
firearm.
if you're convicted.
Of domestic assault. Of domestic assault. Under the federal offense notice, you can never possess nor purchase a firearm for the remainder of your lifetime. If you do that and you're charged with that, that's a federal offense, and the feds will prosecute you.
That's some serious, they
Yeah,
take that
that's
serious.
85.
So that's a criminal charge. This order of protection is a civil matter only. It never becomes criminal unless it's entered either by agreement or a hearing. And
How long do they last?
it lasts for a year. Now, if it's violated, then it's a criminal matter. And if it's violated in the first year, once the petitioner, the person who's seeking it, has the order, can request the court to extend it for 5 years. They have to have proof. If it's violated twice in the first year, they can ask for it to be extended for up to 10 years. Now there is a lifetime order of protection. Effective July 1, our legislature passed the lifetime order of protection. Now, I haven't had anybody seek that yet. So we'll see how that plays out. And that's under very, very stringent circumstances.
When it comes to juveniles and stuff
Yes.
like that.
That's what I have on Wednesdays.
Oh, that's right. Oh,
We're just now getting to Wednesdays.
Yes.
Hang on, folks. We got Thursday and Friday and a Saturday coming.
Well, Thursday's
Thursday's
criminal.
Criminal. So
Yes.
that's out of the way. That's one of them 200 to be on Thursday.
Yeah.
Or one of the 400, but split it up. But with juveniles have, in some of the situations that you have to go through, I can only imagine how it tears at your heartstrings. How do you help these juveniles that you see to keep them from mistrusting the court system or the system itself?
Okay.
You kind of understand
I do.
where I'm going
Yes,
with
very
this?
much so.
Okay.
So for juvenile court on Wednesdays, I have a Wednesday that is specifically designated for cases involving kids who commit delinquent acts. And that is what would be a crime if you're an adult. So a delinquent offense would be like shoplifting, possessing marijuana, drinking underage. Unruly acts are acts that we can't commit because we're adults, like running away from home. You may want to run away from home, but you can't because you're an adult. Truancy, those are unruly acts. Those are on a specific day. Now, when the legislature passed something called the Juvenile Justice Reform Act in 2018, I was the president of the Tennessee Council of Juvenile and Family Court Judges. It was an overhaul of the juvenile justice system, and it was massive. We, three of us, including Judge Brigham from Stewart County, met with some legislators, and we asked for some modifications of that. One was a modification regarding what's called a risk and needs assessment. I know that sounds a lot complicated.
It sounds like something the government would say, but go ahead.
What really that means is for every child that's charged with a delinquent offense, let's say I actually have this court tomorrow. So if I have a child charged with possession of drugs, I'm going to order, before there's a guilty plea or whatever, I'm going to order an assessment of that child. That particular child. Carry counseling comes to court free. They have a counselor that comes and does the assessment with that child and with the parent in our conference room. it lets me know that if that child is on probation, if they acknowledge that they possess marijuana, which is 99% of the time, that's what it is, I know what that child needs. Every child, it's not cookie cutter. Every child's different. I know what that child needs. For probation rules, we have curfew, and we have people that check their curfew.
Oh,
And it's not like saying you have to be home at 7 p.m. and then nobody ever checks it. That's like telling your child, I'm going to take away your computer, but then you let them have it in their room and you never check it. Yeah. So we check curfew. They have public service. So for boys, they wash ambulances, fire trucks. They shelve books at the library. They go to Tomorrow's Hope and shelf things for them, set free ministries. Girls feel like...
Hay. That's what we need, some hay haulers.
They can't do it for an individual. They have to do it for the general public. The girls fill out cards and write notes for nursing home and assisted living residents that never have a visitor or never have a card. Because, those people are important in our society.
Sure they are.
And
they're our mothers and grandmothers.
Absolutely they are, but they might not ever have anybody. But these young ladies are now seeing that they're not the end-all, be-all of society. They may think they are. And then all of a sudden they recognize that there are people in the world who lived a long life and had worked and had family, and all of a sudden they're in this nursing home and nobody ever visits them. So these
That's
girls...
sad.
Have you seen the lights come on when they
yes,
do work like this?
very much so. Especially the young people who are affluent, who have the car parked at the high school parking lot that's worth more than some people's homes.
Right.
That's
another thing that I've noticed with even like churches that go to foreign countries and help out the children when they come back.
Yeah.
They're totally different.
They recognize people who have less than, because all they've ever known is they have. So they have to have, if it's a drug involved, they have an alcohol and drug assessment to see if it's a one-time being a knucklehead, experimenting with marijuana.
That's right.
Or if they are doing it every day. And if they're trying to numb something that's going on with them, if they've been sexually abused, if they're being bullied, if they're numbing themselves because there's a pain.
That's right.
If girls are cutting themselves, if boys are cutting themselves.
We got a whole new, I hate to butt in on, excuse me.
Absolutely.
We've got a whole new deal going on. These kids cutting themselves. I mean, that's, I'm 58 years old. I've never heard of such.
Well, cutting...
The world has changed.
The cutting for them is physical pain, right, but it alleviates the emotional pain. So
maybe I'll just...
So they cut, and it helps them have physical pain, but they don't have that emotional and psychological pain. It's been going on for a long time.
I call them cutters. It's amazing that the kids will go to hide that.
Right.
You didn't have John Weatherford as a father. My physical pain come with a belt, hard work, truck patches, hauling hay.
He can get a hold of.
Well, yeah, I mean, and maybe that's what's wrong with me. No.
So with these kids, if they shoplift, then of course they have to write a letter to Walmart for apologizing for shoplifting. And the reason they do that is I explained that when you shoplift, you create a situation where they have to increase prices for those people who pay. So you're really writing a letter to people who pay. Mm-hmm. Yeah. They can't go to Walmart for a year. And, some daddies in the audience are going, yay,
That helps everybody involved.
Yeah. They have to pay, they have to be responsible. Sure. They are accountable. The whole point of juvenile court is to treat and rehabilitate. I don't want to see these kids in adult court.
That's right.
They make mistakes. And sometimes I'll have a kid who is a little hesitant, and I'll say, all right, in this room, who has made a mistake? everybody, all the adults. I raise my hand and I'll say, you see that? We've all made mistakes.
What in juvenile court? I hate to butt in on y'all too, but you've really gotten good about dragging the heart pains out and making me and Billy sit here and look at you.
You hadn't heard anything.
I don't make us cry. But what's some of the hardest things you have to do in juvenile court? I mean, not names and faces, but I'm saying what's some of the things that come in front of you in juvenile that just tears you apart?
Well, and I have child support, and usually I have 150 child support cases a month. And if someone's in jeopardy of going to jail, and they're indigent, they're poor, I appoint an attorney for them.
Right.
I'm required, just like indigent poor people in criminal court. If you are in jeopardy of going to jail, you're going to get a lawyer.
Well, you need one.
If you qualify.
Yeah.
So in DCS court, that is the Department of Children's Services case. What happens in that scheme of things is the Department of Children's Service receives a referral, and the person calling is anonymous, and they say, Susie and Bob are neglecting or hurting their children. So they will then go out or they'll conduct an investigation. Sometimes they'll call neighbors, they'll call doctors or pediatricians. They conduct an investigation. It could be wide and long. It could be child's born at the hospital with drugs in its system, going through withdrawals. I mean, it could be a child that's sexually abused. It could be so many.
You see it all.
I see it all. So they conduct an investigation. Then the caseworker, the Child Protective Service caseworker, will file a petition asking me to remove that child or children from the parent or parent's care. They sign a sworn affidavit that it's everything in there, all the people they've interviewed and all the facts in there, and it can be 10, 15, 20 pages long. All that information is true and correct to the best of their knowledge.
Because with a sworn affidavit,
correct.
If that is a lie, they can be punished or fined,
right,
or both.
Correct. And they're basing it on what information they've been given by witnesses. And so they bring it to me, I look at it and review it. And if I feel that that child or children are at risk of in danger, then I sign what's called an ex parte order. Now, there's a general rule that judges cannot have any ex parte communication. What that means is if you two are in a lawsuit and I see you, I can't talk to you about that without him being present. That's unfair because I'm going to subconsciously form an opinion.
That, and you might give advice.
Yeah, I just can't.
I understand that.
So,
and I respect that.
So I'm very careful. I mean, Mark and I'll go to Walmart and I'll see somebody and I'll go, "Ooh, I can't talk. I know you, but I can't talk to you because you got a case." Sure. So that ex parte order is one exception, and that's because you have children at risk. So if I sign that order, I am required by law, and I do this, to have a hearing for that parent or parents within 72 hours. 84 max, and that includes weekends and holidays.
Sure.
That gives that parent the opportunity to be heard.
Sure, he needs to be. The parents need to be.
Right.
I hear a lot of people saying that they feel like the DHS has too much power, and that they run the courtroom with children more than the judges do. But explain to me how that's not really a true statement. I mean, how much do you listen to them versus reading, and you can say that don't sound, I mean,
they file.
You understand what I'm coming from? I'm not putting them down, but I hear that all the time, that they got more power than you do.
The Department of Children's Services is just one type of case, but when they file a petition, when they come to court on the 72-hour hearing, if the parents are served and they're in court, if they qualify, and majority of parents qualify for court-appointed attorneys, there might be a mother, there might be 3 children, and there might be 3 different daddies.
That's the problem.
I mean, that's
you say court-appointed, excuse me, but that means that we're dealing with people that's lower income.
Yes, very, very much so.
That seems to be a problem with children and lower income.
Almost every one of my DCS cases, Department of Children's Services cases, where a child is alleged to be dependent and neglected, the parents are indigent. So mother will have an attorney, father or fathers will have an attorney. Then I appoint a guardian ad litem. That's the attorney for the child or children. So you might have 5 more lawyers.
Oh, Lord.
Then I have a CASA, which is a court-appointed special advocate. That's a program I started. That's a non-lawyer. My daddy says that's the one with the common sense.
He might be on to something. Daddy's most time are right.
Yeah, that's the non-lawyer person who is a volunteer who's been trained to be a voice for the child. And then everyone has a lawyer, and so DCS is a party. They're a party.
So
Mother's a party.
Oh, it's a mess.
Every daddy is a party. But I mean, I keep it straight. I keep everybody on their toes, and I make everybody follow the rules and timing. And
So what you're saying is what you're doing is your bottom line is this, Vicki. What's best for that child?
Absolutely. The parents have fundamental due process rights. They have those, absolutely, and I am very cognizant of that, and I protect that. But the safety of a child is priority.
That's right.
That child has to be safe.
You know, you're right. You were saying a while ago about, these children having fancier cars than we drive. We've got a society now where a lot of parents are telling their daughters that they're queens. They're growing up, oh, you're a queen, and never punish them. They don't make them do the right things. They never say, I'm sorry. It's all about me. It's about me. It's about me. It's about me. And I try to, with them 10 grandkids that I have. You remember Cole?
I
used to go to church
yes,
because he's a pistol.
He's a sweet kid.
He's a pistol. I think you went to church with my daughter, yeah. And, but I tell them, tell my grandkids, if you don't mind your mother and your father, you'll be minded by the judge and the jailhouse.
That's right.
So you've got a choice while you're young, Cole Morgan. I'm going to use him since you know Cole.
I do.
He's a typical little kid, cute as a button, but he's just a boy. And I tell him, I say, when your mama tells you no, there's a reason, because you've ruined my life, because his mama won't let him do something. But I tell him, you got to let them know that there's a penalty at an early age, because they grow up thinking that they're a queen or they're a king.
Mm-hmm.
They don't have to play by the rules, and next thing you know, they're in your court.
Yes.
And then if they don't straighten out, then they go upstairs.
Mm-hmm.
So parents are responsible for their children in more than one way, in my opinion.
I agree.
You're responsible for raising that child, but you're also teaching that child how to be a citizen, how to be a productive citizen, and keep them out of your courtroom, because that's it starts at home, and it takes a town, and it takes people like you with our community to raise these children.
Well, my delinquent numbers, the kids committing crime, are down. We don't have, and when they violate their probation, we don't use detention unless we had a kid that committed a rape or a homicide. Then we have to use detention, which means we send them to Rutherford County, or hopefully we send them to Dyer County. That's our preference. But delinquent numbers are down. Our child abuse numbers are way up, and that's the
Why do you
common.
think they're that way?
Drugs. It's parental use of drugs.
I think you and I have talked over an hour, and that's our biggest problem.
Well, of course. I mean,
Everything.
when we have judges conferences and when we all talk about
It's
that,
drugs.
parental use of drugs is the reason a lot of children are in custody. Now, I will say that
Is marijuana a gateway?
Well, I'll say this. When I have Inman middle school students come to observe court, I always ask for either they come in groups of boys and or girls at different times.
Sure.
The group that comes at 8:30, which is 30 minutes before court starts, they come in, I talk about the judicial system, and we talk about drugs. And I always have a group of male inmates that are there, and they know not to say anything ugly. And I'll talk about marijuana, and I'll say, guys, can you tell these young people about going to school? Go to school. You better go to school. You're going to end up like me. And I said, talk to them about marijuana. And I'll say, Bob or somebody, do you feel comfortable? And they'll stand up and they'll say, I started using marijuana when I was 10. And then it wasn't enough, so I started using so-and-so. So from these people, what I recognize, and I don't know if I'm sure there are lots of studies out there. I can't quote a study. I can tell you that from the inmates.
You are a study. Go ahead.
That the inmates I've talked to, what they tell me and what they tell these kids, which is that's better information than anybody going to their school and talking to them. Standing there in the inmate garb is, I started using marijuana when I was 10, 12, 13. And then I started using something else because I thought, well, this is okay, but I'm going to try this, and I'm going to try this. And then here I am. And I've been to prison, and I've been in jail, and these kids are like this.
Who better to ask? Who better to ask when we got you sitting there?
And I say, what would you tell them if you could do it over? I'd go to school, and I'd never smoke that first marijuana. I'd never smoke that first joint. And these kids are smart. These are, 7th and 8th graders. They've been around it. Most of them have done it probably.
Sure,
I hate to say that, and I hope that's not accurate, but
it's true,
I don't know that for a fact.
Everybody's
but
tried
I
it.
know about kids.
I mean, who didn't try it? I grew up in West Paris in the 60s. It was everywhere back then, and it's probably more of it now. So, it is what it is. I mean, I think medical use of it's got its place. It's got its place for medical. I've seen too many studies and read too much about it because I spend too much time in that muffler shop because you really taught me a lot. Billy, you need to work for me. Let me get out and catch up on what all y'all already know.
Ask Kevin, I am working for you.
Yeah.
Where was you at last night?
Oh, you're right.
Let me point to one thing about the delinquent kids.
Lead us down that road. You're doing excellent.
Delinquent children, when they violate their probation, so we don't send them to detention, we have something called options. So on Friday night from 6 p.m. till 11 p.m. and on Saturday night from 6 p.m. until 11 p.m. They come to the juvenile courtroom, and we have a male and female staff member who supervise them. And they have to sit in the courtroom, no phones, no music, no computer, no books, nothing. And they have to, for all that period of time, they write off. They have to just do write-offs. Or they study the driver's license book to how to get their driver's license. It's miserable. They have to even pay to come. I mean, they have to pay. I tell them it pays for the electricity in the building. And they get the cheapest saltine crackers and tap water. That's the snack. It's out of detention. And so they know, and I'll say to them, now, you understand if you violate your probation, you're going to do options. I don't want to do that. And I say, well, of course, it's punishment. It's like an inmate saying, I don't want to go to jail. Well, of course you don't. Jail's punishment. Yeah. So that's their penalty for violating their probation. Well, it's like sewing. It's like quilting, ladies. Sure. Teenagers gossip. They know at the high school what options is. You could go out there and ask any of them. They'll say, oh, I don't want to do that options program. So that is what happens when you violate.
You know what I've learned from you is we have a parenting problem.
Sometimes.
Well, I'm glad you said that because I was wondering, actually, you hear all this crazy stuff in other states. What exactly can a parent do and not do to a child to correct them?
Well, I mean, a parent has a right to punish their child as they see fit, but you can't abuse your child.
Well, I totally understand that. But, there's some places some states that are just way out the box.
Well, in Tennessee, you have the right to discipline your child. You just cannot abuse your child.
So that line's that wide. It's not that wide.
It is. You just have to use common sense and judgment. Never discipline anybody, your dog, your child, anyone, when you're mad.
That's what Jade used to say. She says if their dog is unruly, then their child is unruly. And I was kind of amazed by her picking up on
anger
that.
is just...
My dad never whipped me unless he's mad, because I did something to make him mad. He'd tell me, don't do that, son. Yeah. And he had a belt, and he could pull that thing out, Vicki, like a samurai sword. Quick. Yeah. I mean, it was out and doubled over, and my hind end was whipped.
My mother was Filipino, so she had flip-flops. Just as quick as she'd get it up to her butt and sling it. It was like...
Yes.
And they got away, and it didn't, Billy, me and you was known to have much sense. I don't think it's from whipping.
I still don't.
No, that's what I'm saying. We don't know. I don't think
that's why I'm on the show.
Yeah, you are.
I'm not smart enough.
Yeah.
I also have mental health jurisdiction.
Excuse me?
I have mental health jurisdiction.
Now, I want to talk about that.
Okay.
Yeah,
I have sat here
kind
and
of wondered about that, Mike.
Well, I know she's going to talk to me. It's personal, okay? No, I just kidding. Yeah, you've done such a good job that I've just
How this is called therapy.
Yeah, therapy. I've not even gotten on my notes because you're just going right on the list.
Okay.
When I was a child,
A
growing
long
up,
time ago.
yes, it was. Billy. When I was a child, get something right. When I was a child growing up in West Paris, the crazies, you call the police. Somebody down there acting crazy, you call the law come and got them. And if I ain't mistaken, it was probably Ardell Cole was the judge at one time, but it might have been. Yeah, I knew Ardell. My father was a good friend. Before him, was Jackson?
Harold or no.
Kesterson? No, he was
No,
juvenile. Who was it?
Ventimiglia was the juvenile court judge, and
Aaron Brown, maybe.
Marvin Morton was the juvenile court judge.
60s, it may have been
60s,
Ardell.
I don't know.
You wasn't born yet, so
Yeah, I was born in 58. I was born in 58.
But you call the law on crazies.
Yes.
And the law come and got them, and we always carried them to Western State where they had the white squirrels, and that's just how it went. I mean,
Western Mental Health Institute.
they had white squirrels, Billy.
Oh, I know they do. I just kind of laughed. I just now remembered that. That's right.
They do. And I figured the squirrels even crazy down there. But anyway, I'll take that back. But it seems like now, you know where my shop is uptown. They're all around me. They're just everywhere.
What, white squirrels?
No, the crazies. And other than me. I know I'm not counting myself crazy. We all know that. There's no help. But bigger, they're everywhere. And there's nothing that seems like can be done. Along with the homeless, God, I feel sorry for them, but I try to help them. And the homeless.
Got one putting water in the gas tank.
We got one come through there putting water in his gas tank, and I seen him on mobile patrol the other day. But are they tying your as a state or whoever? Maybe tying your hands, Vicki, where you can't address that problem no more like we used to when I was a child? Well, what's changed?
Well, in the...
you understand what my question is?
I do, yes. In the mid-'90s, the federal budget cut the state budget so that our group homes closed. We used to have group homes for people that had suffered from mental illness. So those were people that couldn't live on the street, couldn't live at home, but they didn't need to be incarcerated. They didn't need to be in jail, but that was the solution. When the federal budget cut the state budget, those places closed. And that led to people such as what we have now. So when the mental health court, when people go to the emergency room, and they are then sent to Lake Haven Behavioral Health, which are our 3rd and 4th floors of our hospital. We have 2 floors now, 3rd and 4th.
It used to be 4th floor. When I grew up, put you on the 4th floor.
The 1 floor is really designated for Alzheimer's and dementia patients, and the other floor are for the rest of the patients. When those patients are placed on those floors by doctors, and that patient is being treated for mental health issues, schizophrenia, paranoid schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, any number of mental health disorders, and they want to leave. But 2 physicians or 2 mental health professionals sign sworn affidavits, that they need to remain because that either they're a danger to themselves and or a danger to others. Then I am contacted by Lake Haven, and I'm required to go there. I don't ever, in 15 years, I've never made them bring a patient to court. I always go there.
You go to the 4th floor.
Mm-hmm. And then I meet with the social worker or the psychiatrist, and they tell me, and I look through the file, and they tell me about the patient, and then I have a hearing. I talk to the patient. Sometimes it's very clear. It might be someone who is comatose, or not comatose, but non-responsive. I'll go in their room, and they won't even speak to me.
A lot of it can be... I can't never say letters from the military,
Post-traumatic stress
Yeah.
syndrome.
I see some of that. I've talked to some of the,
Yeah.
but then again, I've talked to some of the ones uptown. I've tried to help them myself, and they talk about that. And,
Sure.
and
I have someone right now in a facility in Memphis who used to be one of those people. I know who you're
I
talking
think
about.
that's right.
Yes.
The federal needs to get involved.
He is actually doing much better, and he's
Really?
been there for months
Good.
because we found because he's a veteran.
Sure.
Well,
We need better government.
oh yeah, veterans deserve so much better than we
Yes,
provide.
we are.
So, and sometimes it's not clear. Sometimes I need to talk to the person, and I've been doing this a long time, so I know what questions to ask. Like, how old are you? Where do you live? You know, sometimes they'll tell me they're 30 and they're 80. Sometimes they'll tell me the president is, Eisenhower. But I'm always kind to them. And then I signed an order or I don't for commitment. And the commitment's for 15 days. That gives the social workers time to find a placement for them. A nursing home, an assisted living, a relative, etc. Those other people that you're talking about that are roaming around the downtown area, those are people that are generally homeless, that have been arrested, but our medical facility has not determined that they meet the commitment level for Lake Haven. I don't sign orders for those people. That's a medical issue, not a judicial issue,
Okay.
unless I go to Lake Haven. And the psychiatrists or the medical professionals have signed that. Really, there needs to be medical folks that are involved in that.
We need more federal dollars. We need better veterans, because a lot of them, you and I are probably talking about the same
Yes.
gentleman. We need
Yes.
better of that. Vicki,
I'll-
I've kept you a long time tonight.
But let me clear up one thing.
Sure.
When people are arrested and there's a question about if they've been arrested, and there's a question about competency, we have a lot of people waiting right now for forensic evaluations. That's to determine two things. Present competency, can you tell me who your attorney is, what a jury does, what the judge does, the procedure, and were you competent at the time the alleged crime was committed? A lot of those people are waiting to go to Western Mental Health, where the white squirrels are, according to you.
They are there, right?
So there are a number of people in our jail who are waiting for that forensic evaluation. Those are people who are charged with criminal offenses. So,
Vicki, I can't tell you how much I appreciate it. Will you come back? 'Cause
Yeah.
I've kept you over an hour, and I don't
Sure.
want to keep you so long. We've been probably talking close to 2 hours. I mean, an hour and a half.
Hour and a half.
Yeah, I don't want to keep you so long. Will you come back?
certainly.
I really do. Yeah, really, Billy.
It's been good.
It's been good. I've learned a lot of stuff. I mean,
I want you to remember that word affidavit.
affidavit.
Yeah, because
AFFIDAVIT.
we're going to come back to that in a later show or a show that's coming up that you need to remember that, because I'm going to bring that up.
You gonna make me spell it?
No.
Oh, well,
Just
you
I
want
want you to
me
know
to
what
spell
that is.
I know, Vicki. I appreciate it.
Certainly.
I
Glad to be
really
here.
do.
Thank
I
you
mean,
for asking.
I hope that you enjoyed yourself.
I
You
did.
just took natural.
It's important to educate the public about the role of the judiciary. We don't make the laws, the legislature does.
You just got to enforce them.
Well, yeah, we just have to interpret.
It's hard to do what you do.
Amen to that.
They're telling me to roll it up.
Okay.
They're telling me to roll it up. It's hard to do what you do. I know the music's already playing. They're to do what you do legally, morally, and as a mother, and as I'm going to say Christian too. It's got to be hard on you. It's got to, and you do an excellent job at it. I don't think I'd want anybody else to do
Yeah,
it.
I've watched her sometimes at her hardest.
Yeah.
I have.
I want to tell you how much we appreciate it.
Thank you.
Folks. That's going to be edited. Folks, we've had Judge Vicki Snyder, and she has really enlightened Billy and I. Has she not, Billy?
Oh, yeah.
She's told us a lot about what the workings, and she's going to promise me she's going to come back, because I don't want to keep her too late. Her husband's over here looking at his watch, so I'm sure I've kept him out too late. But tune in. We've got more stuff like this coming in the Mike Weatherford Show. Go to our Facebook page. Like us, go to our YouTube channel, go to www.Mike Weatherford Show, and when you get to either one of them, to like us, subscribe to us, and tell your friends. Tell us, lead us in closing prayer, Billy.
You don't want me to do that. We'll be here for a little bit. But anyway, I hope y'all come back and tune in, find out what we're asked about, what we're talking about, because we're just two guys looking for the answers.
See ya. Come back and see us.
Y'all be good. Thank you, Miss Vicki.
Thank you.
This portion of the Mike Weatherford Show was brought to you in part by 54 Fuel Mart, a great place to eat with friendly staff and some of the best gas prices in town. Stop in for a bite to eat and get treated like family. That's 54 Fuel Mart, 1213A West Wood Street in Paris.